but be willing to go back and clean things up and let go of our pride and deal with the issues in our life. I don't know about you. Sometimes I think I'm the only one. I'm the only one who deals with these things, and everybody else at church is innocent. They're all little angels, and I'm the only one who's a little bit on the demonic side. You know, I think they're all a bunch of little angels, and I'm the only one that has these problems. I'm the only one that's had breakdowns in relationships with people. I'm the only one that has this laundry list of faults. But my suspicion is that we share a lot of the same issues, share a lot of the same concerns. So here's some things I took out of my baggage this morning. It flew off Southwest Airlines, all the way from Dallas to the Milwaukee airport, and then here as well. So I just brought a few things with me this morning. Are y'all guilty of expressing harsh words? Y'all ever say things that are harsh? You know, I hate to admit this, but sometimes my mouth gets in gear long before my brain gets in gear. Yeah, my mouth, it works. I have a pretty quick wit, and my mouth can certainly engage very, very quickly. Several years ago, my wife was telling, just informing me something her brother-in-law, not my brother-in-law, her brother-in-law. She was telling me about something her brother-in-law had done. And she wasn't being derogatory. She was just simply telling me something that had happened. And my immediate response was, what do you expect? He's an idiot. Well, all of a sudden, there was just dead silence. And I thought, I knew instantaneously I had said the wrong thing. And after a few moments of dead silence, I looked up, and there was these big elephant tears. And I was like, oops. You know, I'm starting to dig my way out now. And she said, you know, he may struggle. He may have issues in his life. But that doesn't give us an excuse to be mean. What do you do with that? I mean, and she said it so nicely, too. My 16-year-old, I have a 16-year-old, and I'm still standing. This is my third go-around. I have a 23-year-old son, a 21-year-old son, and then we have this 16-year-old who's still at home. The middle one is a carbon copy of his mother, personality-wise, very reserved, very quiet. My oldest son has his mother's brains in my mouth, which is really lethal. And my youngest one is me on steroids. So it's been a challenge. But in regard to harsh words, I remember an occasion, it's just been a few months ago, where I had to get on to him about something, and he was very receptive, and he listened. And then when I finished, he said, you know, Dad, he said, I know where you're coming from, and I know you're frustrated, but he said, you don't have to say it so harshly. You could say it a lot kinder, like Mom does. Well, harsh words. The harsh words can sometimes become the beginning point of the process where there is a relationship that is characterized by brokenness. Well, that's a common baggage that we carry. And then if things go from there, sometimes we get in a situation where we want to get our revenge. You ever been in a situation where you want to get your revenge? I'm going to take care of business. That's what we do. Do y'all call it that up here in Racine, in Texas? We say, I'm going to go take care of business. You have to pronounce it correctly. It has a D in there. It's not B-U-S, it's B-U-D, business. We're going to go take care of business. Okay, well, here's how we take care of business in terms of revenge. Some of us are very overt about getting revenge, are we not? I'm going to let you know how it is. And in Texas, we tend to be pretty plain-spoken. I'm going to tell you where you stand, and I may not say it very nicely. I may use some of those harsh words. Others on the other side of the spectrum are passive-aggressive. Not going to say anything that's harsh or mean, but boy, you sure can pout. And you can pout really well. You can be quiet for a long, long time. So sometimes revenge is overt, and sometimes revenge is passive. And passive-aggressive is every bit as lethal, if not more lethal in some cases, than being very open about it, but nevertheless, it is a form of revenge. And it's another form of baggage that we carry and we really don't want anybody else to know about. Ever struggle with bitterness? Is bitterness in your bag this morning? I've been told that bitterness is like drinking acid and expecting someone else to die. Well, that's the truth of it. And bitterness is all-consuming in our life. Bitterness can be a situation where that's all we think about, because that relational breakdown that began with harsh words and perhaps was notched up one more level because we chose to get revenge in whatever our preferential way is, in turn it becomes a situation where they're bitter and I'm bitter and everybody's miserable, and that relationship is soon to be destroyed. Well, another form of baggage, and I think we all struggle with this, we all struggle with forgiving, don't we? That there's somebody I need to forgive, or perhaps, as Jesus says in this passage, I need to go to someone else and ask for their forgiveness. Be willing to admit my wrongdoing and say, I just need your forgiveness. Would you please do so? Now, around our house, we have a phrase, and unfortunately I pass this phrase down to my boys, much to my wife's chagrin. The phrase is, it's easier to get forgiveness than permission. One time I went and I was going to buy a new truck, and I nearly signed on the dotted line without consulting my wife first. And I came home and I said, I decided that was not one of those deals where it's easier to get forgiveness than permission. And she said, that's probably a good thing. It's probably a good thing you didn't do that. Forgiveness is something that every Christian struggles with. To be willing to forgive as He has forgiven us. And to think about that huge, huge debt that He has forgiven. Are we willing to extend that same mercy and that same grace to other people who desperately need it? And then ultimately, if we can't forgive, it's going to lead to brokenness in the relationship. And unfortunately, I've known people, and you have too, who have a string of broken relationships. Broken family relationships, broken relationships at church, broken relationships with really, really close friends. And it's really sad. It's sad to look back at people whom perhaps in some cases we've known for many, many years, and we're carrying that baggage of brokenness. So we have all these excuses. Jesus tells us, go and be reconciled. But when it comes right down to it, the reason that we don't want to go and be reconciled prior to coming to worship is our hearts are full of pride. And that may very well be the most dangerous form of baggage that we're carrying.
That's right.
And it may be the form of baggage that we're least willing to admit. We had a nuclear meltdown at church several years ago. Do you ever have nuclear meltdowns? We have an occasional nuclear meltdown. That's what I call it. When it's just it seems like chaos is reigning. And it doesn't last. Nuclear meltdowns, we have our fallout, and we're going to get just a good old argument, and everybody kind of gets tangled up with each other. We had one of those nuclear meltdowns. It's been about 15 years ago. Actually, I came into this church right after the meltdown had occurred, and there was still lots of fallout left. And so they were telling me that the pastor of the church, the person preceding me, had particularly gotten tangled up with one individual. It was just a very unhappy situation, and there was a lot of brokenness, and there was revenge, and there was harsh words. There was all the above, and then some. One of the members of that church was a dentist and a pretty sharp guy. And so he got the pastor and the person whom he was conflicted with together at the Pizza Hut one night. How can you not solve things over pizza? If things can't be solved over pizza, I guess they just can't be solved. So they order pizza, and they're sitting at the Pizza Hut, and Robert is trying to encourage reconciliation between these two individuals. And the pastor told the gentleman whom he was conflicted with, he said, I'm sorry. I know that I have contributed things to this relationship that are really negative, and I want to ask for your forgiveness. He did all the things that Jesus prescribes in Matthew 5:21-26. And the other individual just crossed his arms like this, that means non-verbally. Crossed his arms, and he looked him right in the eye, and he said, I have done nothing wrong. Well, the dentist who was trying to foster this reconciliation, he was a little taken back. And once he got over this initial shock, he said, in my dental practice, sometimes with my employees, they're 90% wrong and I'm just 10% wrong. he said, could that be the situation here where perhaps the pastor has contributed primarily to this problem, that he's 90% wrong and you're just 10% wrong? And the gentleman sat there, and once again, he